Hi, I'm Benoit. I'm a ballroom dancer just like you. Usually, dance videos star the people on the screen, but not here. Here, what I want is the star to be you. So how about I show you something new that's going to make you an expert overnight? Would you like that? Come on. It's not going to happen. You know very well that it takes tens of thousands of repetitions to become an expert at anything. And only then can you make things appear easy, natural, and comfortable. Did you ever think that if you're 30 years old, you have 250,000 hours of experience with your body? If you're 60, 500,000. That's a lot of experience. You do all kinds of things. You write, you run, you drive your car. You do millions of actions and you master all of them in a way that looks natural, easy, and comfortable. But most people are not aware of their experience. So that's what I offer you. I offer you to make you aware of your experience. And then transfer that experience to subjects related to dance, subjects that interest you. We're going to talk about weight transfer, music, gravity, posture, and more. So what do you say? You still want to learn something new? With this plastic spoon, I'm going to make you understand your experience. But first I have to tell you that 25 years ago, in dance lessons, there's one word we never heard, the word biomechanics. Today, we hear it right and left, and it scares a few people because it sounds too scientific, and we're used to believe that science is very complicated. And we're also used to believe that the human body is very complicated. So imagine the complicated science of the complicated body. That must be very complicated. And this is not why we go dancing. We go dancing to free our minds, not to overly think. Is biomechanics so complicated? I don't think so. With a spoon, we're going to experiment in the sink. I'm going to turn the water on, and then with the convexity of the spoon, I will just touch the stream and we'll see what happens. A drawing force. You can try this experiment hundreds of thousands of times and you always get the same result. A drawing force, only a drawing force. It's cool, huh? Now, I would like to change the word drawing force and use other words that are just like you. I want to start with the word desire. Aren't you full of desire? We'll see. It looks like the system desires the spoon. Now we're going to try wanting. What you want a lot, you're full of will. Yes, you are. Did you see that? Now, I want you to see that what happens in the sink happens in two stages. The first stage is a stage creating movement when the spoon goes all the way through to the other side. On the other side, it becomes a static position. So I want you to think about two verbs, taking and retaining. Look closely. Taking, you know, I'm a ballroom specialist, but I also know some Latin. In Latin, the word taking is perceptio, which sounds a lot like perception. So we're going to change taking and retaining for perception and retention. That would be a lot like you too. You can perceive and you can retain. Let's try perception and retention. It's cooler. We just saw all the potential contained in the spoon experiment. Desire, wanting, perception and retention. That's all good. But it's not that good if that's all we can do with it. So I created a circuit with a spoon, a wire, and a piece of cardboard to see if the system can draw objects from a faraway distance. It works. When the convexity of a curve is put in contact with the movement of a fluid, it always creates a drawing force, and only a drawing force. As you could see with a piece of cardboard. The system cannot move the cardboard away. It can only draw it towards itself. Now we're going to make ourselves a task. We have to build something as spectacular as we could, only using this unique force that can only go in one direction. The first thing I built is made of 2 pieces of wood with a moving joint. So we're going to install it on the table. And we're going to try to activate it from a distance. So I made 2 little strings, and I could attach it on top, but if you remember, we didn't have a lot of movement with the cardboard, so attaching it up here would not create a lot of movement. So I'll attach it close to the joint, and since all I have is a drawing force that we'll imagine connected to our system up here, I can only pull with it, and we'll see what happens. It works. But it would be boring if we could do one motion and be stuck there forever. It would be good to be able to repeat it. But our system does not have the power to push away. It only has the power to draw. So what needs to be done is to attach another little string on the opposite side, and see if the same drawing force could bring the arm back to the other side. It can. I can take and retain on top. I can take and retain at the bottom. And I can even imagine that it is an arm that has the power to wave. A waving arm is pretty cool, but it's clearer to see from a distance when there is a hand on top. A hand can wave, but if it doesn't have joints to pick up objects, all I could use it for is to clap when I see an expert dancer that I find fantastic. But if there were joints, I could close my hand on something. So I made you a false finger. And with the same principle again, there's a little string inside. I'm going to pull on it, since that's all I can do, and it should close the finger. But again, holding an object forever wouldn't be fun. It's good to let it go and to pick up another one. So we have to find a way, with the same force, to open the finger by pulling a new string on the opposite side. I think it broke. Now I built a leg. Same principle. 2 pieces of wood with a joint in the middle. Has a possibility for a lot of movement at the bottom, but my system only has a possibility to draw on a short distance, as we saw with the cardboard. So I'm going to install it here, and I'll see if I can do the same thing as I did with the arm. Install a little string close to the joint. Right here. I'm going to try to pull on it, because that's all I can do. I can only draw. It works, but it seems to be a little bit difficult. There's a lot of tension in the little piece of wire, so I think we should call that a tendon. But to make it easier, I made it a little piece of wood, a kneecap. And with this, should help making it easier. Let's see. Much easier. And with very little action, I can make it move a lot. But again, what would I need to do to bring it in the opposite direction, since all I have is a drawing force? I cannot push it away. I would need again another string that we call tendons now, and hook it at the bottom, again close to the joint. So my little leg could wiggle its foot if it had one. Now I created for our construction the foot it was missing, if ever our invention felt like dancing. And again, since our motivating force goes only one way, I have no option but giving it tendons on both sides. So on this side here, I could flex the foot, bring the toe towards me, but since my force doesn't go the other way, I have no option but to give it a tendon on the other side, and this one we can call it the Achilles tendon. And by pulling again a little bit, I could make our creation get on its toes if ever the music adds some rise and fall in it. All those actions that gave the impression of being able to move both ways were actually the result of one unique force, a small force that could move only in one direction, in the direction of the drawing force of our system of perception and retention. Earlier, when I tried the experiment with the cardboard in the kitchen, I tried to put the marker on the piece of cardboard to see if the system could move it. It could, and that's barely 1 ounce, a few grams. So it means that if ever our invention needed to carry heavier loads, or it decided to start walking, those little strings would not be enough. So what we should do, we should make a stronger tendon, and in case the tendon needed help, we could divide it in many mini tendons. And all those mini tendons would be again attached to our capacity to take and to retain. So since they would be working as a team, it would give our creation a little more muscle. Why don't we call it a muscle? Now it's time, after all the additions of connections from the muscles, to help our single spoon with more curves. So we're going to add more curves to our system. And we're going to give it its independence. So instead of the faucet, we're going to give it a pump. We're going to call this a heart, and we call this a brain. So for it to not lose its water, we're going to put it in a closed environment. We're going to have the pump begin by pumping some red liquid. Red, I don't know why. But here, inside the brain, there will be a little ventricle changing that red liquid into a clear liquid, as we're going to call the cerebral spinal fluid. That's going to be pumped by the heart pressure right over here. What do you think? Does it make sense? So we'll have an independent system, we have a heart and a brain, a central organ of perception and retention. Now that we gave the independence to our creation, I think it's time to cover the whole thing with a skin. Imagine waving at a bunch of strings. It would be better if it was covered with a skin. But the skin is not only for the beauty, it's for practical reason too. You know, lifting an object in air feels much heavier than when you lift it in water. In water, it only weighs 25% of what it is in air. 20-pound weight feels like 5 in the water. So by filling up our skin with water, it would make all the actions of our creation feel much easier. What do you think? The last thing I can think of to complete our invention would be something, it would be like a self-defense thing, the possibility to hear sounds from the exterior in case there was danger. So I was thinking about a little hole on each side, but to not lose the water so it keeps working, it would be like a little skin, like the skin of a drum. If there was a vibration from the outside, that skin could vibrate, and there could be a connection to the capacity for perception and retention on the other side, and that could bring the sound to the inside. So it would be protected from danger. But there could be other kinds of sounds too. There could be some nice sounds. Sounds that would have a rhythm, that would give it the feeling of moving to the music. I'll give you an example. You feel like dancing? We worked hard and we're done with our construction and our little basic study of biomechanics. Imagine if someone found our invention just before our final stage of giving it a skin. They would have seen it, all the wires and all the different pieces. They might have thought, whoa, that looks complicated. But you and I know it was not really complicated, because everything that happened in our invention happened with one single force, the force of desire, the force of will, the capacity of perception and retention. It looked complex. Complexity is simplicity multiplied. In anatomy, when they tell us about the capacity to produce a movement, they talk about the potential for action. Of course, to be able to produce an action, there is one condition, only one condition. What is it? Oh, you have to be alive. And all creatures that have the potentiality for action all have in common a brain with lobes like our spoon, and a continuous movement of their cerebral spinal fluid passing right above, regardless of their size. I created a little circuit again, but this time, instead of a spoon, I use a piece of sheet metal that is approximately the same depth as one of our human motor lobes. We're going to try the experiment and see how much potential for action we have. Did you see that? A potential for action of about 1 inch. A little bit over 2.5 centimeters. Before we constructed our invention, you would have thought, I can move more than that. Look, my hand moves about a meter in space. But now you know better. All that amount of movement is only dictated by two contractions. The first, taking the distal extremity of the tendon of your bicep closer to your decision, that much, and to send it away, the same amount of contraction going under your arm. Those reductions of distances are contractions. A contraction is not absolutely an expanse of effort. All the millions of actions you have performed since you're a baby have been created with this potential of action. This much was your maximum. All those actions with this maximum made you an expert that could move with ease, natural, and comfort. So that tells me that regardless of how far you may think you are from your goal of becoming an expert at ballroom dancing, the reality is that you are that close. Before I let you go, I'm going to tell you the story of Fred and Joe, two neighbors. It happened a long time ago. Hey Joe, come here. Why? Because I got to show you something. I found something. What did you find? I found my grandfather. He doesn't live here. He does. But I found him on the floor. He doesn't move anymore. Let me see that. Whoa. What should we do? I don't know. Are you hungry? I'm hungry, but he doesn't smell so good. You're right. Maybe we should bury him. We get rid of the smell. Yeah. But before we do that, I always was fascinated with the body. I'd like to see how it's made inside. Can we open him up? Huh? It's my grandfather. It doesn't matter. It won't hurt him. Okay, but do it quick. My wife is coming back from work soon. Okay. Whoa! There's a lot of wiring in there. How do you think it works? I don't know. Let me think about it. You know, sometimes I think about moving my arm and it moves. So maybe it would work like our telephone. What do you mean our telephone? I'll show you. Do you have one? Yes, I have my grandfather's telephone. Here. Why is it so short? He was deaf. Okay. So when the string is loose, we can't hear anything. But when it's tight, we can talk to each other. Yeah, and maybe it's the same thing down there. When I do something with my arm, there's a little tension. So I think that maybe he's sending a message to this one, like when you called me earlier, when you said, Joe, come here, and I came. Maybe that's what happens here. This one says, arm, come here, and the arm comes. That makes sense. Remember when we opened the head, there was a lot of water that was dripping all around. Yeah, what do you think it's for? I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. You know, when we fall on the ground, it hurts. But when we jump in the lake, it doesn't hurt so much. So maybe that's why it's for. So it's, if it's hit with a stick, it doesn't hurt as bad. I think you're right. So the water would be for protecting this one. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. I think we got it. The strings to send message and the water for protection. What do you think of my story? Bio means life, and mechanics means how a movement is produced. Biomechanics means how living creatures can move around.